Revenge on Ex-Girlfriend, Karmic Edition. Beginning. I was born in India. When I was 10, I moved to a small country town in Australia when my dad got a job there. It sucked. I was small, fat, brown, had an accent, and didn't understand the culture. A bunch of nut jobs at school bullied me and life sucked. Thankfully, I kept my grades up and got a scholarship to study science at a major university in a major city. During my first day of tutorials at university, I noticed there was a shy, awkward-looking, chubby Indian girl sitting by herself. Her name was Rani, and she too was from a rural town. She had just moved up here with her second cousins. We quickly bonded over how bad high school was and how nice it was to be in a multicultural city. We ended up having a lot of mutual interest and joined the same societies/clubs at our university. Video games, board games, Indian cultural clubs, ballroom dancing, etc. Within a month or so, I asked her out. First girl I ever asked, and she said yes. We dated in secret and became each other's first everything. Kiss, love, relationship, etc. After a year of secret dating, she moved into my apartment. Life was fantastic. We never fought, had zero problems, had similar hobbies plus friends, constantly attracted to each other, etc. It was perfect. Just two lovebirds building a life together. Well, after dating in secret for 2 years, we decided to meet each other's families. My parents are conservative Muslims, but knew I was going to date around. They were just happy I had chosen an Indian girl they could relate to. Her parents initially were very harsh and aggressive. However, when they met me, they immediately fell in love with me. The only problem was they wanted us to get married. Rainey and I had already talked about this. We both wanted to get into medical school after our bachelor's. We both wanted a family and the white picket fence, but we had decided to wait on that until after medical school. However, after meeting her parents and some introspection, I decided to speed up the plan. My plan was to ask her for marriage in 2 years' time when we finished our bachelor's. We would get married in the 5-month break after university, do a bit of travel, have a honeymoon, and then commence medical school as husband and wife. In the meantime, I decided I was going to lose all my excess weight and become the attractive groom she deserved. Both her and I were fat, and we never had any issues with our weight and attractiveness to each other, and I didn't care if she remained fat for the rest of our lives. I just wanted to improve myself and make myself the attractive man she deserves to be with. Heartbreak. Rainey was initially supportive of my weight loss. She liked the new me and how much energy and confidence I now had. After 1 year, I lost 30 kilograms and hit my ideal body weight. I started lifting and building muscle mass. Rainey started getting more insecure in herself. I would reassure her that I had no issues with her weight, but we started getting into more fights. She was annoyed with how I'd always cook my meals and I wouldn't eat out with her as much. I spent all this time at the gym, etc. I was too attractive for her, etc. I would reassure her all the time that this wasn't the case, but things kept getting worse. With 1 year to go, I let Rainey's father in on the plan. I asked him for his consent to marry Rani on the proviso that we'd get married after graduation so that we wouldn't have to worry about a wedding whilst trying for med school. He said yes and was absolutely excited. With 8 months to go, Rainey started acting really cold and weird. I knew something was up. At first I thought it was the stress of med school, entrance exams, coursework, etc. 2 weeks into the coldness, I opened up her laptop to look up this tenancy agreement thing regarding our apartment. I see a messenger message from this guy that was highly suspicious. Rainey had this friend that looked and acted like that dumb fat brother from My Name is Earl. He was absolutely ridiculously socially inept, annoying, and very uncultured/ignorant. He was very fat and had bad BO all the time. He was in the board games, video games, anime clubs with us. Looking over her Skype messages, Rainey had been witching to Earl Bro about a relationship for the past year or so. Earl Bro had confessed his love for her a couple times, which Rainey had knocked back. 2 weeks ago, Rainey and Earl Bro must have cheated. Earl Bro wanted Rainey to break up with me, but Rainey was saying this whole thing was a mistake and to shut up. Well, I saw red and immediately packed up my poop. I printed the messages out. I tell my landlord that I won't be renewing my lease. I text Rainey that I know and that we are through. I quickly moved most of my stuff, I don't have much, most of our stuff was Rainey's, into my friend's house and tell my friends to shield me from Rainey. Well, Rainey found out and went ballistic. She apparently ran home and saw my stuff gone. She went to our mutual friend's house and started bawling her eyes out. She tried contacting me, but my friends deleted all her messages, etc. Apparently Earl Bro was a silly mistake. She never wanted to hurt me, etc. The reason she cheated was because she thought I was getting fit so I could find a better girlfriend and upgrade from her. WTF? Could I please meet her for another chance/closure? Blah blah. I decided I was never going to talk to her again. Something which I have successfully achieved. Revenge 1. Rainey's dad started blowing up my phone a day after dumping Rainey. He aggressively demanded an explanation on why I broke her heart. Her 2 older brothers also called and made threats, etc. I didn't reply to their voicemails. Instead, I sent a huge email out to both Rani and my parents. In the email, I wrote out a heartfelt message explaining how I had envisioned Rani and I getting married, but she had cheated. I copied in the screenshots of her message and that I apologized for causing a scene and diminishing our family's status. Indians care a lot about family status, but that I'd really like my space so I can concentrate on getting into med school. Within 1 hour of sending the email out, Rani's dad phoned up. He was very apologetic. He said his girl was very sorry and it was a mistake. He said he would drive up and beg at my feet to take Rani back and offered me money. WTF? I accepted his apology, but said I don't want any further contact with her or her family and wish them all the best. A week later, Rani's family drove down to our city. They took Rani back to their country town and pulled her out of her courses. She didn't graduate on time and couldn't apply for medical school. She returned 1 year later to complete her course, but she failed. She ended up living at home unemployed for a year before going into her retail job. She put on massive weight and now looks like a bloody globe. Word got out to the Indian community about her cheating, and her family was ostracized. Rani is now massively sad, and her family has resented her for bringing down their status in the Indian community. Revenge 2. I went off to med school in another state. A bunch of Indian parents got in contact with me to tutor their kids. One girl I tutored, Amina, blew me away. She was studying science and wanted to get into medicine. She was gorgeous both inside and out. She had a beautiful smile and lit up the room. Most importantly, she had a beautiful soul. She was active in her community and volunteered a lot, not because it would help her get into med school, but because she actually cared. After tutoring her for a year, I knew I was in love with her. I asked her out, but she declined. She said she liked me too, but she is religious and only wants an arranged marriage, as per Islamic law. Despite not dating her, I knew she was my dream girl, so I contacted my parents. My parents and her parents arranged our marriage on the proviso that we would be engaged for 2 years until both she and I graduate our respective programs. During this time, we started dating as fiancés. Weird, I know. Years back, Rani and I had made a bucket list of romantic activities we would do together as a couple. Amina found the list. I explained the situation to Amina, and she said she liked the list and wanted us to complete the activities with some modifications. We aimed to complete the list before our marriage. Amina took photos and scrapbooked all our memories as we completed them. Things like hiking a mountain, salsa dancing, Great Barrier Reef, Rome, Paris, etc. A couple months before our scheduled wedding, Amina published our scrapbook on Facebook. Somehow, Rani found access to the scrapbook. She sent a scathing message to Amina saying she stole her idea. Amina messaged back a vicious message saying how terrible Rani is, how bad it must be to lose someone like me, and that the scrapbook was our idea together before we'd get married. Hearing that I was getting married must have pushed Rani over the edge, and she threatened to self-deletion. She had to spend 3 weeks at a mental health ward. It was a massive scandal in our Indian community. This was 3 years ago. Revenge 3. I've been married to Amina for 2 years now, and things have been perfect. She's now in med school, and I'm a junior doctor. We're trying for a baby now. Last Sunday, my father called. One of my dad's friends from another city was trying to arrange a marriage for his son. Rani's parents had contacted him with a proposal. My dad's friend called up my dad to get an idea about Rani before they introduced her to his son. My dad forwarded my initial email to this guy, then called up and told him Rani's story of cheating, dropping out of university, sadness, etc. Needless to say, that guy ran for the hills and canceled the arranged marriage. He was very thankful for my dad's advice and said he would warn the other Indian people in his state about her history. End note. So that's all. In the end, I didn't even have to talk to Rani these past years to get my revenge. All of it was delivered on a silver platter by karma. I have a beautiful wife, a job I enjoy, whilst all Rani got was misery and self-destruction. Hey guys, please like, comment, and subscribe. It would really help me out. Thanks. She had a beautiful soul. A fellow footman, I see. She does have dainty feet. I don't get it. We don't do anything different in terms of foot care, but her feet look so good, and mine are full of rough spots. God damn, that's a doozy. To be honest, I feel bad for Rani. She made a silly mistake and it blew up her life. As an American, I fully support silly mistakes and wouldn't hold it against anyone if it was a one-time mistake. But that's my privilege, I guess. Glad you found a better girl and didn't end up with the emotional wreck that was Rani. Damn, that was a good read. I feel a little bad for her, just a little. I figured the family was going to take her back to India and delete her. I feel bad for her. I'm sure she lives a life of regret. Her family are wackos for pulling her out of her course for that year, though I'm not sure she would have passed those tests anyway. She hadn't been studying consistently before we broke up. Wow, I almost feel bad for her. Everyone's done silly, stupid things, but thank God we can redeem ourselves and people eventually forget. I'm so glad that I don't have family aggressively making sure that no one ever forgets it so that I'll be forever miserable in my own community. Though I can totally understand the satisfaction after being hurt by someone. I feel bad for her parents. They shouldn't be punished for their daughter's mistakes. It's how Indians roll, my friend. It's a great community for getting help and assistance, but break a social taboo and you get the stick. Cheating sucks, but it seems she had pretty low self-esteem. Don't you sometimes feel a little sorry for her? I feel sorry how her life turned out because I truly loved her back in the day. I tried my best to alleviate her worries, but she decided to turn to that dumb guy instead of working on our relationship. I hope she turns her life around and I hold no animosity to her, but I'm not going to go and assist her in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to keep no contact like I vowed ages ago.